So I've been thinking the actual unemployment rate in the country is not correct. In fact, we've probably been lied to. You know, and I know that the official US unemployment rate, the 6%, 6.3% unemployment rate that we are being told is the unemployment rate, is not true. You and I know that when the former senior White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow, there he is, what's up, Larry, went on television to say car sales are booming. This is a V-shaped recovery. We don't need a large stimulus. We need targeted stimulus. We don't need this massive amount of money. We don't need a bailout. We knew that there were many, many, many fellow Americans who were struggling, who were suffering, who didn't have money to pay rent, who didn't have money to keep the lights on, who didn't have money to buy food. People need money. People need cash now. We know that the real unemployment rate is much higher. And therefore, it was a bit of a surprise last week when the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell and the new US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that the real unemployment rate is close to 10%. So, why were we being told 6.3% when you know instinctively, and you don't need an economist to tell you that, but it's worth examining why were we lied to? Because you know and I know instinctively that the unemployment rate is higher. But why would we be told that it's 6% when it's in reality close to 10%? This is the fascinating question. Here's an article on your screen that was published in the New York Times, and the headline reads, Why Top Economists Are Citing a Higher Than Reported Jobless Rate. The official rate stood at 6.3%, again, from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. But using an expanded metric, a more accurate metric, Federal Reserve Chairman and Treasury officials now say it's closer to 10%. So here's the interesting reporting from the article. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tallies up how many Americans are actively looking for work or are on a temporary layoff midway through each month, halfway through each month. That number taken as a share of the total labor workforce is what they report as the official unemployment rate. Now, this might make sense in a normal world. This might make sense, when there's a normal ebb and flow of employment. But this does not make sense in the world that we live in. This does not make sense in a world where individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality have lost their jobs permanently. This does not make sense in a world where entire sectors, entire industries have been completely decimated, and individuals who had their jobs for decades have seen their jobs being gone forever. This does not make sense in a world where millions of our fellow Americans are going to be forced to retrain themselves in order to be able to get back into the workforce and become a normal part of the workforce again. So how are the numbers different? Have we actually been lied to, or is this one big misunderstanding? Well, let's hear from the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell in his own words. These are the words of Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Published unemployment rates during the pandemic have dramatically understated the deterioration in the labor market. In simple words, the entire labor market has reduced. In other words, there are less jobs available because some jobs have essentially vanished forever, and therefore the number of available jobs is lower, and therefore a whole lot of people who want to work simply cannot work because the jobs don't exist anymore. So there is nowhere for individuals to apply. Where are you going to apply for work when your job has completely vanished? This means entire categories of individuals, we're talking millions of our fellow Americans, were left out of the 6.3% unemployment metric, which brings the metric closer to 10%. Who are these individuals? Well, according to this article, and by the way, we'll provide you with a link to the article in the description section below, the new metric to get to the 10% figure involves adding back two groups back to the unemployed category, which is again how we get to the 10%. So labor force dropouts, in other words, individuals who just dropped out of the labor force, because keep in mind, as a direct result of this pandemic, there are some individuals who had to drop out of the labor force. Maybe they are caretakers of elderly individuals. Maybe they have to take care of kids. Women have been disproportionately impacted than men. In fact, single moms and moms with younger children have been disproportionately impacted because someone needs to take care of those children. In addition, certain individuals are simply miscategorized. In other words, they are supposed to be categorized as unemployed, but they are not categorized as unemployed. Then we get a brand new measure, a brand new metric. So what is that metric? You see a chart on your screen that was published by the New York Times. Take a look at the section in blue, the line in blue. That represents the official unemployment rate, which, as you can see, the most recent data that we have represents the official unemployment rate. I say the word official, it should be in quotes. The official unemployment rate is 6.3%. But when we start to add in misclassified workers, you can see that the new official unemployment rate is 7.3%. And then here's the big one. When we add individuals who have had to drop out of the labor workforce completely, they simply had to stop working, they couldn't look for work because they had other obligations, or because their jobs were gone forever. In other words, let's say you're working in a hotel, let's say you're working in a restaurant all your life. Suddenly that restaurant's closed. You now, essentially, it's almost like you've dropped out of the labor workforce because that is all you've done all your life. What else will you do? You've now got to retrain your skills, and that takes time. That takes money. So when you add these individuals who had to drop out of the labor workforce, now the unemployment rate is close to a whopping 10%. Let's take a closer look at individuals who are misclassified. What about individuals who are employed but not at work? So think about this. If someone's employed but not at work, they are not looking for a new job, and they are technically still employed even though they are unemployed. This is very important. Let's say you were working in a restaurant and the restaurant hasn't let you go but has temporarily laid you off. In this situation, you're employed but not at work, and you're technically not looking to work in a new restaurant. You're simply waiting for your job to come back, but you're still unemployed. This is the problem, and this creates misclassification of workers. Let's go back to that chart on your screen one more time. You'll see how the misclassification of workers results in an increase in the unemployment rate. But the big one is a reduction in the labor force, because some jobs have been completely decimated and some industries have been wiped out completely. So again, when you add misclassified individuals and when you add the reduction in the labor force, you get the new official unemployment rate of 10%. And the reason I use the word official is the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. There he is. What's up, Jerome? And the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. There she is. Hello, Miss Yellen. They have said that the real unemployment rate is close to 10%. In fact, both of them are using this higher, this truer, this more accurate unemployment number, and they are using it to push for more stimulus. They are both using it. In fact, Janet Yellen is specifically insisting on the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan, highlighting the fact that there is a significant amount of suffering in the economy. And so has Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. In fact, Jerome Powell went so far as to say we are all in this together and we all need to help each other. Every single one of us has a role to play in this recovery. In fact, I did do a video talking about what I consider to be the failure of the $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. I believe that there should be a significant amount of money for retraining individuals who've lost their jobs permanently, individuals who have fallen out of the labor force, and individuals who are misclassified. Among many other individuals, they aren't the only ones. All of them need help with job retraining. Here's a comment, here's an important quote from the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Given the number of people who have lost their jobs and the likelihood that some will struggle to find work in the post-pandemic economy, achieving and sustaining maximum employment will require more than supportive monetary policy. In short, he's saying that for life to get back to normal, for individuals to get back on their feet, it's not just enough to lower interest rates. We all have a role to play in this. If you're an employer, consider hiring someone if you can. If you're looking for work, try starting part-time if you have to before you move to full-time. These are just two examples. I know that this is a complex problem. I'm just trying to give our viewers and subscribers a high-level idea here. And Jerome Powell also says it will require a society-wide commitment with contributions from across the government and private sector. Let me know what solutions you have. Let me know what solution you have to help individuals who have been forced to fall out of the labor marketplace, who essentially are misclassified, employed but not at work. In other words, actually unemployed but technically still employed. How do we help those individuals? How do we help individuals whose jobs, whose employers have gone out of business. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. That really helps out the YouTube algorithm. That would mean a lot to me personally. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.